everybody. Welcome to the M.O.D.O.K podcast universe. I'm
Jordan McCaw.
I'm Micah M.O.D.O.K.
And we exist to prove people wrong when they say sequels are never better than the originals. Today, we are not proving that point, and I just want to get that out of the way.
Well, yes, we're breaking up the flow of our regularly scheduled program, as we are wont to do, because we're returning to our namesake, the MPU. No, the MCU. So, welcome to the podcast. Here we are. We're talking about it. They finished Phase 4. What was the last Marvel movie? With Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
A movie that, for some reason, people find underwhelming, but is really good.
So that was kind of a short phase, right?
It was kind of short, yeah.
You have Spider-Man, Thor, Doctor Strange, and Wakanda.
Shang-Chi and Black Widow and
no,
Eternals.
No, that's a lot of movies.
that's normal.
I forget about those.
But yeah, so now it's time to break it off and get ready for Phase 5.
Can you believe it? I remember in high school when I know Iron Man came out in 2008, but when we were in high school, I remember they released a schedule, and it was the first ever time they released a schedule. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I've never seen a place plan out their movies like this. This is and they're telling us, and that's so many movies. Are they actually going to pull it off? And now we're talking about the 5th phase of it.
Yeah, it is wild.
And it's just normal now.
Yeah. But there's a lot of talk. There's always been talk about when are we going to get fatigued on this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
This feels like maybe the breaking point to this movie, because no one likes it. Critics don't like it. Fans don't like it. I mean, of course, there are people that like it, but I mean, on a general sense, people are like, "Wow, what a whiff!"
Big whiff. When I keep saying Elementals. When Eternals came out, that wasn't the same. That movie made me mad with how bad it was.
Yes.
But also I had no attachment to it. So the fact that it was bad, it was just like, okay, I'm just pretending it doesn't exist.
Well,
that's easy. And then with this one, though, I know we don't really, you and I personally are not huge Ant-Man fans, movies-wise. But at the same time, he's an Avenger.
Yeah.
So for this movie to be this bad, it's like, ugh, it stings a little extra.
Yeah, because this, and okay, so the first point you're making, I completely agree with. There is this to me feels like the first out-and-out whiff. Because there are some bad movies, there's some movies I don't enjoy, but usually there's still something in them. Eternals is my least favorite. I liked it even less than this. But
yeah,
you can tell that there's an artist in there trying to tell a story. I just think it's done poorly, and they don't achieve the goal that they attempted to set out. Which is almost, even though this movie's more watchable than Eternals, I think that automatically makes that movie better. You know what I mean? Because it's like they are trying to do something. I think that my personal opinion is they failed.
Yeah.
But this movie is just it feels like, like an AI bot wrote the script.
Oh my gosh, it does.
And they just fed it all of Marvel stuff.
Yeah. Have you heard about that AI thing recently?
With what? I think there's a lot of AI stuff going on.
The one that it was trying to convince the guy to leave his wife.
Yeah, that was on Comedy Bang Bang.
Oh, but did you hear about it before that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Yeah. Anyway, just that was funny.
But yeah, so this movie just feels like it should be in some cases a slam dunk. You got Ant-Man, even though he's not the best. My hot take on Ant-Man is he only works in ensemble movies, and I don't mean his own ensembles. I mean when he's in Avengers and Civil War and stuff like that. And I think he's always good in those movies. In his own movies, they're just not that good.
No. We've said before that one thing Marvel's so good at is casting.
Yeah.
They never get it wrong. They got some of them wrong, I think. Because no one... I think this about all 3 Ant-Man movies, but this one was the most prevalent. no one's right.
Yeah.
I will say Paul Rudd's okay. I do like Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a charmer, so he's fine.
Right.
But I do agree that he is just better suited for an ensemble. And
yeah.
What sucks so much about this movie is the first 2 movies, they're pretty small. They're pretty ant-sized, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I don't think they achieve it, but they try to do like they're like a heist movie or stuff like that.
Right.
And he's got his crew of dudes, like criminal dudes that have like turned
And the
their
criminal
lives around.
dudes are the best.
And they're
in
not
the
in this
Ant-Man
movie
movies.
at all.
They're not.
So some of their, I would say, Ant-Man foundations are missing in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's like they're hinging their foundations on the wrong people, namely Evangeline. Is it Evangeline or Evangeline?
I think it's Evangeline, actually.
Evangeline, Michael Douglas, and Michelle Pfeiffer are just snooze fests. And those 3 spend like the whole movie together, which means half of your movie is all about them. And it was just so boring. None of their performances were compelling. I think the writing is so poor for them too.
Uh-huh.
So it's not all on the actors, I think that all in all, it's just so poor.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the writing, I found something interesting. I saw someone on Twitter talking about, I don't remember the person's name, but they said, as much as we all want to like bash on Joss Whedon, there was something in the first phase and those first 2 Avengers movies, like there was wit and there was banter.
Yeah.
But it was like character specific.
Yeah.
And ever since he's not been involved, which, I'm not the biggest Joss Whedon fan. I mean, even setting aside the fact that he is like not a great guy.
Yeah.
But he like the humor in these movies is kind of like interchangeable. Anyone could say anything.
Yeah.
And I think this is like a prime example where it's like every character, every joke, it's not motivated by their character. It's just someone writing a script and it's all the same voice.
Yeah.
And so especially in this movie, like these characters do not feel different than one another at all.
No,
really.
not at all.
But so if you're not someone who's just always plugged into the MCU, I believe it was this last year, 2022, they had their big like Comic-Con or Disney Con or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And Kevin Feige's like, okay, guys, here is the deal. Phase 5 begins with Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which we have not even said the title of the movie. That's what we're covering today. And we're going to introduce Kang. And Kang is going to be this is going to be the big baddie. This is the Thanos that we are now going to have. Because like a lot of people complained that Phase 4 felt like it was not building up to anything.
That's the best part of that phase, dummies.
I know.
Let us cool down from the events of everything else.
No, I think it's actually a very smart move, but it is, it's certainly interesting that it did seem like people were just not quite as interested in Phase 4 and there wasn't an overarching like thing that it was building up to. So, but anyway,
that's just crazy.
Yeah, he's like, okay, so he's coming in, and there's gonna be all these movies that they have on the timeline. We got Guardians 3, we got, I think Blade is still being made, we got Fantastic Four, but it's all gonna lead up to Avengers, the Kang Dynasty. So, like, he is gonna be in this, for the long haul, and then I think there's Avengers Secret Wars. And I believe he's going to be in that as well. Okay, so our producer gave us the skinny here. You got it? So now we know.
Who's our producer?
I'm the producer.
Oh, you're just trying to sound fancy?
Yeah, I am. Okay, so here's the deal. Phase 5 is Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Then it's Guardians of the Galaxy 3, The Marvels, Captain America, New World Order, Thunderbolt, Blade, Deadpool 3. And this is...
Whoa. Do we know that about Deadpool? Did I know that? I forget.
I don't know. But
crazy.
Yeah. And then what they have listed for Phase 6 is Fantastic Four and Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, and then Avengers: Secret Wars. So I'd imagine Kang will probably die in Kang Dynasty, and then he'll be done. So he probably won't be in the...
Is that going to be like a two-parter, though?
No, those are two separate stories. I would think anyway.
What are the Secret Wars about?
The Secret Wars is a crossover event, one of the first to happen, like in the big scale way, at Marvel, where all the heroes in the middle of their magazines were taken to a planet, and then there was this guy named the what's his name? I can't remember, but he was just like he basically took them, and then he took villains, and then he was like, okay, you all have to fight on this planet, this battle world.
Whoa, cool.
I don't think it's very good, but
cool.
I think people are like nostalgic for it now and like it, but at the time people were not crazy about it.
Maybe they have a good take.
Yeah, I mean,
was it a little boring for you? Because that's all they were doing.
Well, it's very much. I mean, if you look at it, they actually it was all about selling toys. So they like made this event so that they could sell toys. And it just kind of reads that way.
Oh, okay.
But
I could do this with this gadget and this thing.
Right.
Available at these stores. Batteries not included.
But it is where Spider-Man got his black costume.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not a Venom thing?
Well, no. He gets it there. He comes to Earth. And it's very stupid how he gets it. He's just like, oh my gosh, my costume's ruined. And then he like has this alien costume and he brings it back to Earth. Again, it's just so that they can like up their sales and stuff, new costume. But then a writer comes along and they're like, what if this costume does this weird thing and it's like overtaking him because it's an alien? And then they write that for a while, and then it eventually he banishes it after a while, and then Eddie Brock gets the symbiote, is what it's called, and then becomes Venom.
That's like the origin?
Uh-huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a great example that happens all the time in comics where it's like a really dumb idea, and then writers come along and they're like, actually, we can make this really cool, and it'll basically trick you into thinking it was cool the whole time.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's a great looking costume. Never doubted that. But when you read it, you're like, this is the epic like black costume. Of course, I don't think they knew that it would become what it became, all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, so this is all part of, so the first three phases was the Infinity Saga. This is called the Multiverse Saga.
Yeah.
So phase 4 was supposed to like introduce us to the multiverse, and now we're in the multiverse. So
how did phase 4 do that? Well, I guess we had
Multiverse of Madness, Loki, all of this stuff. So I think it makes sense. I think on like the grand scale, I think this all makes sense. And I've been seeing things where they're releasing like images that show like Kang, and they basically say like he wants to kill all the superheroes. And I'm like, hey, if your superhero Avengers movie is his main goal is he just wants to kill all the heroes, that sounds pretty cool to me. That's great. But not the best way to intro him, in my opinion. Although he was introed in Loki. That was a variant of his, which I'm a little fuzzy on what all of that means. But, I don't think it's time for... I don't think this is like... I think they need to maybe start like going around the boat that they've built and just making sure the life jackets are still there and like work. But I don't think they need to abandon ship yet or anything like that.
No. I don't feel that way either.
But it does feel like with the shows they need to figure something out.
Absolutely.
Because I think everyone's tired of it.
Let's just take a break.
Yeah, I think they need to cool it, put out 1 or 2 seasons a year maybe.
I saw this quote, and I don't know if it's real or not, like because I didn't click on the article, but it was like Liam Neeson said, this is about Star Wars, but I think you can apply it to Marvel. He said that they need to like quit it on the Star Wars shows because it's getting rid of the wonder and mystery of the world.
Did he really say that?
Apparently.
Whoa, he's right.
He is.
Because Marvel's. I saw someone making this argument. I don't necessarily agree with it because I think they're both still doing successful, but it is something to note. Like Marvel's doing so many TV shows that people are starting to be like, you know what, whatever. Like kind of about the whole thing.
I know it's getting people to fall off.
And there is, I mean, I feel like you've always had to do your homework with Marvel, but it's starting to feel like when we were watching this movie, I was like, oh, should I have rewatched Loki? Because I'm confused about certain aspects. I mean, they did an okay job bringing him back in, but, it's just like, how much of this homework do I need to do for shows that always have 2 bad episodes to end them, typically? And so there's that. And then the other thing is with Star Wars, people are liking the show so much. I think Obi-Wan doesn't count. That it's kind of like, how are they going to convince people to go back to the theaters to see these movies that they're used, like these shows that they now, like, what's going to be special enough for Star Wars to be in the theaters now that they're telling these stories primarily on TV, and they're making them more and more epic, for lack of a better word. Having said that, I haven't seen Andor, but interesting.
Yeah.
We're in a weird spot, and as we've talked about in previous episodes, like we're all discovering throughout the pandemic that like streaming isn't very sustainable. Like you need box office. So I know if I'm Kathleen Kennedy, I'm gonna be like, hey, I know we greenlit like 10 Star Wars shows. Let's just finish out Mandalorian. Let's cancel season 2 of Obi-Wan because that show is terrible, and let's like make a movie. Because then we can make millions of dollars and have a better budget and all of that stuff. I don't really get it. And then Marvel, if I was Marvel, I would say, hey, let's make animated shows. Like make it because they're trying to make them like the same as the movies. They're just longer. So,
they did just come out with an animated show for kids that
the Moon Girl one,
like has no bearing on this stuff. Yeah, which is fun.
Yeah, I think they should do more of that. And people are so nostalgic for... I mean, they're coming out with the X-Men 90s show again. Like...
Why can't we just leave it in the 90s? Because even if the show's good, it's never going to be as good as when it came out in the 90s. Because people were at a different point of life then. Which why it was so like special
to them at that time.
And it's so easy to just complain about it anymore.
Yeah.
Just do something new.
I do think like, it's cool to keep that animation style going. So, but to make it like this is actually like connected to the 90s X-Men is kind of strange. But I never saw it, so I don't
never did either, and I have heard it's amazing.
Yeah.
But like many things that have been brought back from my childhood, it's like we just don't need it.
Yeah. I wonder what the limit is for bringing things back. Because it does seem like anything that's comedic, it's like, okay, the reunion or the reboot season or whatever, and I'm like, I think the floodgates were open when Arrested Development was brought on to Netflix.
But that one failed. That's why that was extra exciting. Like it got canceled.
Yeah.
They're rebooting things or having special episodes that didn't even get canceled.
Yeah.
That being said, let's go for that Community movie, 6 seasons in a movie. But they set that up a very long time ago.
That is technically a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because we like that thing. But yeah, so this is where we're at with Marvel. It's very strange. Now, this movie still opened higher than any of the other Ant-Man movies.
Really?
So yeah, it went from like I'm just talking domestics. But it went from the first one opening to 57, the second one opening to 75, and this one opening to 105.
That's pretty significant.
That is. But I really think, because I remember reading something, I think Doctor Strange, a movie that is really good, I think it dropped 69% the following weekend, which weirdly is kind of normal now. Like they count on just huge opening weekends and then just legging out like pretty low amounts. But if that movie dropped 69%, I think this movie's going to drop in the 70s.
Yeah.
Which would mean we'd be like, it'd make like $30 million this weekend.
Yeah.
Which would be not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
I think now, well, I just assume that people who want to stay on board with Marvel stuff but are feeling fatigued, there are probably so many people for this movie that this movie came out and it's not getting good reviews critically and audience wise.
Yeah.
That they're like, I think this one I'm just going to read about.
Or just wait until it comes out on Disney Plus.
Or just wait.
Because it'll probably come out before Guardians. Plus, we know it's not going to have any bearing on Guardians.
No.
So it's like, I don't know. I would just wait. I mean, we told my dad, I was like, don't see this in theaters. It's a waste of your money.
Yeah.
But let's talk about who made it. Once again, we have Peyton Reed.
Yeah.
You're welcome on the pod anytime, Peyton. But especially in this movie, terrible directing of action.
It was so bad.
It was crazy. It was like some of the worst action directing I've seen.
Very hard to follow. Very shaky.
Yeah. But you did direct, at least at the time, without doing any rewatches, my favorite episode of Mandalorian. So, the guy can do some stuff. But
They also put Greg Turkington in these movies.
Yeah, and I'm always happy about that.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of blows my mind, and I can't wrap my head around it, is he comes from a comedy background.
Mm-hmm.
He's made comedy movies. He's obviously hip to the scene. He had Greg Turkington in a movie and Tim Heidecker in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about, and it's all of them, but especially this one, it's like, what? These are not jokes. These are like automated jokes.
The only funny stuff was the beginning of the end of the movie. Those were the only funny parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Bill Murray wasn't even that funny. I mean, Bill Murray himself is always funny.
Yeah.
But his scene, I was having such a hard time paying attention to what was happening.
Yeah.
And you have Bill Murray. That's probably a dream person he got to direct.
Yeah.
And I hardly remember he was in it.
Yeah.
That's a travesty.
Well, and I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. If anyone has any ideas, I'd love to hear what you think. But there's something about the editing in these movies that it's like the humor goes away because I don't know if it's like the shots are just like a split second too long when they do a joke, or it sometimes doesn't feel like the movie's self-aware enough to tell the joke.
But the other two seemed pretty on point. Like
yeah.
Like even if I didn't really enjoy them, I feel like they knew how funny they were.
I just remember not thinking they were funny.
I know, but like
you remember in Ant-Man 2, I made I had to detox with you whether Paul Rudd was good at acting.
I know, but I think
he is.
I think there is a part of that with those two movies that's on us more than it is on them. And I think I'm just wanting to believe that.
Yeah.
Because I saw this movie and one of the biggest complaints I have was that it wasn't funny. Because the first two movies are.
Yeah.
And it's not light. I don't know. It's like can't we allow them to remain? Can't we allow some characters' movies to be like light or something? I don't know.
Well, and it's
Ant-Man. What? It's not going to be that crazy, no matter what. Yeah, Kang was in this movie. Whatever.
But now it is. It is weird though, because the tone of the movie is very strange, and they've pulled this kind of thing off before, but. I mean, like Guardians movies are very funny but serious as well. But I mean,
that's because James Gunn has an understanding of the characters.
Yeah, I mean, he is he's the best at it right now.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's why he's given keys to a kingdom. But I just don't think Peyton Reed is in tune with that.
No. But the thing I wanted to say though is like another weird thing about this movie is Jonathan Majors, who plays Kang, is so serious in this movie that I, even though I'm kind of tired of this style of humor, it's like I kind of wanted him to at least do something deflating, like one time, because he was so serious this whole movie, and it's like he
was pretty serious in Loki too, right?
Yeah, but he like jumped on a table and acted weird and stuff like that. And this one, he's just stone cold.
When
I don't know, man.
Before this movie started. We got the Creed 3 trailer.
Oh, yeah, baby.
And then I feel like he was in another movie. I just know he's in other stuff coming out, too. And I was just thinking, like, Jonathan Majors is so hot right now.
Yeah.
He is the hot commodity.
Uh-huh.
It's cool that we get him in this movie. And I watched the movie and I'm like, oh, whoops.
Well, he's just... I don't think he's bad in this movie, but it's the wrong performance in this movie.
Every performance of his is wrong in this movie because he plays multiple versions of himself, and they're all wrong. They're all like dated weirdos.
Yeah,
like in movies. I don't know. They were all. They didn't.
This performance strikes me as it will work in a movie where he's trying to kill all of the Avengers, but it doesn't work in like, hey, Michael Douglas is going to say the word ants 40 times in this sentence.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I did kind of like his. Although he wasn't doing very much, but I did like the scene when with him and Michelle Pfeiffer when he was about to like get everything back.
Actually, that was the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
Besides the opening,
because we like
ending.
really. I mean, there's more to learn about him in this movie, but we like learned some true motivations.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was good.
Yeah, I liked that flashback sequence. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Let's just we're going off book here, and I'm afraid we're gonna start spoiling things. But we keep our new episodes spoiler free. So guess what? I'm not even putting in the song. It's spoilers on here on out.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
Okay, but I don't have anything to spoil yet.
Well, we can talk about the elephant in the room.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Wait. So the writer of this movie, I was shocked when the movie said written by, and it listed one person. Because this movie reeks of 6 or 7 or 8 different writers.
Hey, maybe there were.
Yeah.
But I agree. It was shocking.
And this writer's name is Jeff Loveness. And he is going to be...
name.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be writing Avengers, Kang Dynasty. He wrote on the show called Rick and Morty.
Okay.
Which
you happen to know what seasons? You probably wouldn't know.
I think it's after us.
Okay.
I think. Because we stopped watching that show, listeners. And then he also wrote on this show you may have heard of called Miracle Workers.
Ah, okay. So he gets to write a non-funny thing? Miracle Workers is so funny.
Wait, he gets to write a non-funny thing.
This
What do you
movie's
mean?
not funny.
Oh.
And he has like he's a comedy writer.
Yeah. Yeah. It is weird on Blank Check on their Doctor Strange episode. They talked about how the last few years has been Dan Harmon, one of the creators of Rick and Morty, is indirectly responsible for like the future of the MCU because like Doctor Strange, this movie, and I think a couple others all have writers that started in Rick and Morty,
which is a show about multiverses.
Yeah,
among a million other things.
Which I
think they get into that too because I feel like you told me about this. Don't they kind of get into like how we establish multiverses?
I don't remember that
because he did in Community. He establishes multiverses.
Yeah, like in a pop culture sense beyond comic books.
Yeah, it's almost like he is the person to bring it to popular culture,
and people love it.
Yeah,
because people love Community and they love Rick and Morty, so it makes sense. That Kevin Feige, I mean, I know we're in the danger zone. We're checking the life vests. Like I said, we're making sure there's no holes in the lifeboats. And there could be an iceberg up ahead. We're not sure because we're too busy falling in love.
It's too foggy.
But Kevin is still making great decisions. Because I think that's a good decision. But after this, we'll see if Jeff Loveness is still listed as writer of Avengers Kang Dynasty.
Okay.
Because I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So then the cinematographer for this movie is a guy named Bill Pope. He is one of the... Do you hear my voice crack there?
Did, yeah.
He's one of the most successful cinematographers ever to live. He did a movie called The Matrix. Enough said.
Wait, just the first one?
I think he did all of them.
All of them? Okay.
Not the newest one.
That is bananas to me that he did those movies and they have such a look to them.
Yeah.
And this movie is so dark. It's again, it's kind of like Black Panther. Black Panther wasn't very bad. There were a couple scenes in Black Panther that were
any night scene, I couldn't see what was on the screen.
Yeah, it was so dark that I actually didn't really know what was happening. And I just don't get it. I don't get it.
I was just a second. I was rewatching Succession, and I was watching the last episode of season 2, and they're on this yacht, and it's so brightly lit, and it looks great. And I was just like, oh, thank goodness this isn't a Netflix show, because I wouldn't be able to see anything in this show if it was.
Think because that show is so good, that they need it to be so brightly lit. One, they're probably in Italy or something, on a yacht, and then they're trying to create it like it's idyllic.
Yeah.
So it's just so golden and beautiful. Is that the episode where at the end, Kendall is like, my dad did everything?
Yeah.
Man, I wish I wasn't sleeping through that one.
I didn't finish it, so I'll finish it later today.
Okay. But yeah, but in this movie...
hang on. You're in trouble. With that show, I think with lighting, people just... Especially if you're like a Netflix show or something, you just get like a mandate. This is what I think. And like Marvel, you just get a mandate, like make it look like this. Whereas like Succession, it's like, well, this is supposed to be like a documentary fly on the wall. Why would it be dark? It makes no sense thematically for it to be dark. So I don't think they take that into account. They're like, we're adapting these bombastic comic books. They're in Quantumania. There's all these different animals and stuff.
Open a comic book and see how many colors are in those freaking things.
I know.
Because in this movie, so much of, especially the parts when like Paul Rudd and his daughter are like with that, are like captured by those people, and stuff, and that they're with them for a pretty long time. That is all so dark, and it's like you can't just put a couple spot fires everywhere and tell us that that's our light source. Yeah, I need more than that.
Well, and I'm gonna say a big hot take. I think this movie is the Rise of Skywalker of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Wow.
Where I think a lot of people are gonna be like, I don't need to do this anymore.
Can I say one thing though?
Yeah.
MVP.
Yeah.
The buildings that are alive.
That's cool. Hey,
they were pretty cool. The one at the end that's like holding the other one that's dying.
I don't even remember that.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, another thing, we've now been through the pandemic. There's still traces. I'm not going to necessarily say it's over or anything like that, but things are better, things are more open, but they've had to shoot a lot of stuff throughout the pandemic. And there's, it's interesting seeing how different movies and stuff, like Marvel, their universe, it didn't happen. Like they don't talk about the pandemic or anything like that. Other things are, other things aren't. Something like Kimmy, Steven Soderbergh's movie, is like kind of like post-pandemic-ish. So it's interesting to see how they handle it. And even though the pandemic is not mentioned in this movie, I think this might be the most COVID movie I have ever seen.
Why?
Because this is like, hey, dude, why don't you come over to my basement? I own 3 green sheets, and we can film the entire movie in front of it.
Yeah. It's so strange, too, because I did not feel a sense of wonder while watching this, and I would like to know if anyone else had. Because like when I watch Guardians, especially that scene in Guardians 2,
I know exactly what you're talking
about. Part of it's the soundtrack.
Touching the bubbles.
It's so good. But yeah, when they're on Kurt Russell's planet and Drax touches the bubbles and laughs, it's just like that. There's so much wonder in those movies.
Yeah,
because in terms of visuals are similar.
Yeah.
Well, and this was just like, I feel nothing looking at these things, and I should be like, this is eye candy.
Well, and I don't want to just keep beating this horse because I want you to still like this movie. But you're kind of in trouble when 2 months earlier we were all able to see Avatar.
Well, yeah.
Because it's the best looking special effects ever. And that is a movie where, like, think about how much of that movie's runtime is dedicated to wonder. And letting you... And this should be the same thing. I mean, it shouldn't be 3.5 hours long. But this should be like, you're in the quantum realm. This is wondrous. Or make it like so vicious. We're talking like this is Ridley Scott's Alien. I mean, a PG-13 version, but like this is scary. And they don't choose either. And Avatar, they jump in the water and you get like chills because you're seeing all this crazy stuff and the music swells and it takes its time. This is like, hey, there's a thing over there. Let's go. Okay, here we go. Now we're going over here. Okay, let's go. It does sort of feel like there's a half-hour cut from this movie.
Yeah. Of establishing shots and such.
Yeah, and maybe even like an entire plot because this movie just kind of, everything's like, hey, that thing, here's the explanation. Let's go. Hey, that other thing, here's the explanation. Let's go.
Yeah.
It kind of is like the later seasons of Rick and Morty where I was just like, you're not providing me with any stakes, and this is so nihilistic that it's not fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not nihilistic, this movie, but it does have that same kind of thing where it's just kind of like, here's a bunch of images.
Yeah.
But even though
it also feels like they do the bare minimum of the actors existing within the world, because there is like Michael Douglas like touches this little ball sprite thing and stuff, but like other than that, that's it. They like hide behind some kind of tree thing, but they're not really touching it. And then like then they ride on on like a, I don't know, bacteria looking thing.
Yeah.
But like it's so far away we can barely see that it's happening. Or when we do see it, the shots are so fast and janky. So I don't know. It just feels like the actors don't like it. It's almost like we can tell that they don't know what's there because there is nothing there.
Right. Well, and
they like put it. Which is what they do. This is how it works. But they do the FX around them.
Yeah.
And it really felt like that for this movie. Didn't feel like they were existing within it.
Well, and it is interesting because there's that technology that was developed for Mandalorian, which is like, it's kind of this circular room, and you can project the image, so the actors are actually like acting in it, and you're actually filming that image. I'm sure they can touch it up in post still, and it worked really well for that show. It genuinely just looks like old green screens for this movie. I mean, this is like Spy Kids level, like Spy Kids 3D video game
with
kind
less
of thing.
Colors.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Rodriguez like did this so that they could do it.
When is he gonna make a Marvel movie? Well,
he did make a We Can Be Superheroes or something like that for Netflix.
Yeah, but that's not Marvel.
No, I know. I mean,
I would like him to make a Marvel movie.
Ooh, I would not like that. He don't have it no more.
Oh, okay. I think a lot of people would be interested to see what it would be.
Although he did direct a couple episodes of Boba Fett, which was fun to see him directing. I don't know. Maybe he could do it. I don't know. Give him like a couple of
weird. It'd be weird.
Give him like an episode of Loki or something like that.
Okay.
And then maybe a TV show. I mean, a movie. But yeah, so you were talking about the wonder, and then here's another thing about this movie. This is kind of a weird format. We haven't even gone through all the notes, but we're like talking about everything about it already. That's why we spoiler alerted. Something that is very important, and kind of indefinable, is if you're going to, they get to the quantum realm, and there's like whole societies that live under there. That's cool. I'm into that. But there was never like a sense of realism that these are actually societies that exist.
Well, I think that's because they were broken down societies.
Yeah, but so is Mad Max.
But also, true. But when we get to Kang's like empire, we don't see anybody living in it.
No.
So it just looks like a sterile environment. And
that's, I don't think that's intentional, folks. That's just like we didn't think to do it.
Are literally faceless, which, I mean...
Classic.
Yeah, but...
We love a good faceless enemy.
To me, it feels like the only people who inhabit the city are his henchmen that wear these blue helmets.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
But it's just so weird. Like, everything about the movie just felt kind of like, we just hired some artistic directors, and we just asked them to create like 50 characters each with no like rhyme or reason. Which is not necessarily bad, but again, Mad Max, Avatar, like, these things are, like, really thought out, and they're the kind of thing where you go, a character is fishing with a type of net or something in Avatar. I don't need to know what it is, but I know that they spent the time to, like, actually know what that is, and it provides so much realism to something that's fake, and it helps you get immersed in the world. And this movie's like, hey, there's Glob Guy. Hey, there's Beam Man, and you're kind of like, okay. And
what's their deal?
Yeah, and it's like they try to do the Mos Eisley Katina, from Star Wars, where they go into the bar and you see all the different Quantumania stuff. And it's that funny thing. People try to do that all the time, and there's nothing like the magic of the first time that happened in Star Wars, where you did look around the room and it truly felt like every single creature you saw had I mean, this is why people were become obsessed with Star Wars. Like, it felt like they all had this crazy backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't need to know what it was, but it felt like that. And this is just like, oh, there's rock fungus, broccoli man.
I feel like that one guy that's in The Good Place, was a waste.
Oh yeah,
of that actor. Like they,
because I don't see him coming back.
No, and that's a good actor. So it's like I feel like they wasted him.
And speaking of like interchangeable humor,
I
mean, not his fault, but
no.
So, but the music is by Christoph Beck, who did, of course, Drillbit Taylor, Hot Tub Time Machine, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and doing the upcoming Shazam 2. Hey.
No opinion.
I liked the music in this.
You did?
Yeah, there were a couple of, it sounded like they were trying to establish a theme for Kang.
Well, that's good. I clocked nothing.
Yeah, it was kind of the synthy, like, I don't think it was those notes exactly, but I was kind of like, okay, I get it. So I think he's faultless. I think he did a good job. Budget is $200 million, which is crazy. I've never seen a movie that looked this bad. Yeah. So Jeff Loveness was inspired by several father and daughter films for this movie, and I just wanted to cite these.
Okay.
He was inspired by Father of the Bride, Hook, and Jumanji. Those are some that he really wanted to.
Jumanji.
He wanted to get into, which
That's
is funny.
Not a father-daughter movie.
Oh, father and daughter. Excuse me, I misspoke. So, I do like though
that makes no sense. It feels like, again, Paul Rudd. I'm gonna look her up in a second, but the actress plays his daughter. I like her too. It felt like they had no chemistry.
No. Well, this reeks of like either everyone is sick of playing these characters, or they filmed this at the point in the pandemic where they were like, I am going insane and I don't want to live anymore. Because it kind of feels like there's someone offset with a rifle that's like, come on, let's do one more take.
Well, what is you told me what Michael Douglas said.
Well, yeah. So there's an interview. They like caught him on the red carpet or something, and someone was talking to Michael Douglas. He seems like he couldn't be less interested. And then they said, if they make a fourth Ant-Man, would you want to come back? And he said, as long as I can die. And then he walks away.
He was wishing he could die in this movie.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He was wishing his ants would just turn on him and eat him alive.
Ants.
Yeah.
Ants.
Yeah.
Ants.
Yeah.
Emma Furman is someone who played Hope, right? Is that Hope the daughter's name?
Yeah.
In a movie
that's
called
Evangeline Lilly.
Oh, then what's his daughter's name again? I can't remember.
I will tell you.
It's not Lily. It's not Cassie. So, of course, in the first two Ant-Man movies, there was a young daughter. And then after Endgame, there was an older daughter because 5 years had passed since he came out of the blip. That person was Emma Furman. And they just never asked her to be in this movie.
Wait, are you saying that she could age-wise be in this movie?
Yeah. Because she was in Endgame. And he saw her, and she's in the movie. They didn't ask her to be in this movie.
Oh, they had an older actress for Endgame?
Yeah, remember in Endgame, he gets out of the quantum realm, and he goes to his house, and he sees his daughter.
What's her name?
And she's grown up. Her name is Emma Furman. Fuhrmann. I'm trying to hit you with the headline here, but you're missing it.
Emma Furman?
Yeah. Fuhrmann.
What's the headline?
They never asked her to be in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't. Why not?
Yeah, I just think that's crazy. She found out the day that they announced the casting.
What? That's kind of like an unlike Marvel thing. I know there's like little things throughout that they've been not consistent.
And she doesn't have like scheduling conflicts. She said she would have done it. And she did say like, hopefully that means I'll just be involved in something in the future.
Maybe like when they were talking about casting and everything, that the casting directors were like, what was her name? Like, no one can remember her name. And they lost her headshot because forever ago, and they just couldn't remember her name. And they were like, well, I guess it just means we got to recast.
I guess so. But anyway, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I do like who they have in this, but that just feels like such a corporate thing to do. Just be like, oh, we want someone who has more credits than you.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, is this actress, the new one, is she really like attracting people to see the movie? I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's okay to keep the other girl. But Bill Murray had this to say on why he was in the movie. This is my final note.
They called my phone and I answered.
In any case, some people were quite surprised why I decided on such a project. But for me, the thing was quite clear. I got to know the director and really liked him very much. He was funny, humble, everything you want from a director. Murray went on to cite the cheerleader story Bring It On, calling it a damn good movie. 2000's Bring It On was directed by Reed, and that's who directed the first two Ant-Man movies. So I agreed, although I'm not interested in these huge comic book adaptations as an actor otherwise. He said he probably wouldn't do a superhero blockbuster again. And then he said, let's put it this way. The director is a good guy, and now I've at least tried out what it's like to shoot a Marvel movie, but I don't think I need the experience a second time.
He was in one scene. That's very strange.
But I like how he's like, oh, that guy directed Bring It On. I got to be in this movie.
That's weird.
Yeah, so that's what I got on notes, and basically most of our thoughts on this movie already.
So Catherine Newton plays Cassie Lang. She is also in Big Little Lies, Pokemon, Detective Pikachu, Freaky, and a lot of other stuff. And then Jonathan Majors, we've not talked about.
No.
I feel like we have, but I guess not. He is in Da 5 Bloods, Lovecraft Country, upcoming in Creed 3. He is so hot right now.
Like Hansel?
Like yeah, exactly. Katie M. O'Brien plays Gentora, the lady, like refugee or fighter lady. I just seeing her body, it was like, how is she not a wrestler?
Oh,
she was so buff. She's in Westworld, Z Nation, Black Lightning, The Mandalorian, and a lot of other stuff.
Mandalorian, okay.
William Jackson Harper plays Quaz, the telepathic guy. He is in The Good Place, like we said.
Oh, okay.
Midsommar, Patterson, Dark Waters.
I don't remember him in Dark Waters.
Me neither.
Which is a good reminder to listen to my album, A Beautiful Divorce, with a song called Dark Waters on it, which is inspired by the movie Dark Waters, starring Mark Ruffalo. Mm-hmm. You can listen to it anywhere you get your music.
And then, I mean, that's about it for me on people to cover.
It is, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we want to tackle this, Jordan? We're in the movie now.
Well, the best parts of the movie, like I said, are the first scene and the last scene.
Uh-huh.
That's your two high points. So the movie starts. I'm trying to find the guy who's the elephant in the room. But he's like not casted. He's like not credited. Or
something. Because it's like it's probably still secret or whatever.
Yeah.
Even though I think he may have been in one of the trailers we didn't see.
No way. Oh, he's at the very end.
Yeah.
I just don't know what his name is.
Well, tell us. You spent a lot of time.
His name's Corey Stoll.
Corey Stoll.
He is in Ant-Man, the first one.
Yes, and House of Cards.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this starts off with Paul Rudd. His name's what again? Steven?
Lang? Is it?
Why do I want to call him Stephen Lang?
But that's the guy from Avatar. Scott
Lang.
Scott Lang is his name. Scott
Lang. He is just high on life. He's an Avenger. Things are going so good for him. He's walking down the street on a sunny day in San Francisco, and everyone's like, dude, you're so cool. Take a picture with my dog. He goes into a coffee shop where
he's narrating in his head, which I found very fun. I liked that.
It was
choice.
Charming.
Yeah.
And he gets coffee from the guy that's in that I Think You Should Leave sketch about cars.
Maybe it'll have a steering wheel that doesn't fall off.
Very fun. Another I guess Peyton Reed's
he gets it. He gets comedy. The scene. Yeah, but I don't know.
that was funny. And then I also thought it was so funny when he was at like brunch or lunch with the FBI agent. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
And they're just like they're just because they've always had a contentious relationship.
Yeah.
But like
Randall Park is
Randall
his
Park, that's his name. But they're like friends now. They're having lunch together. These other people pick up the bill. Life can't go wrong.
Because he's an Avenger. He helped save the world.
Yeah, and he wrote a book about it. So he's reading from his book. That's the voiceover.
Yeah.
So we go to a book reading event from it, and it's just so funny and so cheesy.
Yeah, he's positioned exactly how he is on the cover as he's reading, which is funny.
Yeah. And
at this point, I was like, okay, maybe all the reviews are wrong because this is pretty charming. Mm-hmm. But it takes a turn.
And then he gets a call from the police. His daughter is in jail.
Yeah.
Goes to pick her up. She is in jail for protesting. I forget. Oh, I was at a homeless camp. Homeless people were being arrested.
Yeah, so
and
she
stuff.
shrank a police car.
Okay, that's what she did.
Yeah.
And we find out that this isn't the first time she's been arrested. But so it's like she's been arrested like 3 times, but every time it's been for like a just cause in a way.
Yeah.
When on the flip side, Scott's past was he was a petty thief. Like he was deserving to go to jail.
Right.
But like in a way it's like she's following in his footsteps, or so it looks like.
Yeah.
So for me, pretty much when he picks her up from jail, the movie comes to a grinding halt.
Whoa, that's
very fast. Because then we get to reintroduce to Evangeline Lilly's character Hope.
She's so bad.
She's so bad.
Movies.
I'm sorry, she's so bad.
She's so bad.
And we reintroduced to Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer, which you can hear my flaming hot opinions about Michelle Pfeiffer in these movies in the last Ant-Man episode.
Well, stop plugging so much.
But they're having dinner and they're talking about how Cassie's like ruining her life or whatever. But then I will say I'm glad that they got into the Quantumania, like
Quantum realm
so fast.
See, here's where I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
I think that this movie jumps into it's like we hardly have time to even feel the temperature of the water. And I
think I would agree with that instead.
Immediately throw us in there, and then like the characters have to develop to everything that they've set up in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
And also, just to get this out of the way, this movie has the entire crux of this movie is a romance premise. Because Michelle Pfeiffer, as we know, spent like 30 years in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Had a hard time. Miracle that she made it back out.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't talk about it with anybody. And obviously it's because she's ashamed of what happened. And all that crap. But
something happened down there. I can't tell you about it though.
And it's just such a classic, like if you had told one person in your family about this movie wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And then that's why we were in the quantum realm, because Cassie invented a contraption that went haywire, which really it was King, found their signal, pulled him in.
Yeah.
But throughout the movie, she's still like, I don't want to talk about it.
I know. This is the reason Jordan said the romantic premise. It's like that thing when you're watching usually romantic comedies where you go, if you had one sentence where you just explained what happened, you wouldn't need to be mad at each other.
Yep.
And then the third act of the movie could be different.
Yep.
And there's movies that pull it off. And there's movies that just don't do it. And you can do either. But to make it unearned is very, I don't like it. And so for this movie, which is supposed to be like an action adventure, it really doesn't work because we're not even in the genre where that's like the trope.
Yeah.
It's just like, Michelle, just tell, you're already in the quantum realm. Just tell them what happened.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, whatever. I can't tell you. I'm too ashamed. And they do that classic thing too, where they're like, there's not enough time. And that's always annoying because when we find out what it is, it's like, okay, it took you 2 minutes to show a flashback.
Not only was there enough time, when you said there wasn't enough time, they had to like walk across a canyon to get where they needed to go. You don't think you could have told them that in that time?
Yeah.
Okay. Guess not.
I know. It's so crazy.
So they get split up for the rest of the movie. It's Scott and Cassie together with the other three together.
Oh, one thing before we get fully past and into the quantum realm. I just wanted to say that when this movie started, as someone who really enjoys this series, enjoys comics and all that stuff, when he was summarizing like what happened in Endgame and all the stuff that's gone on with his life, I did think to myself, like, I think we may have gone too deep. You know what I mean? Like these movies, like it's just like, do we really need every movie to start out with like, hey, here's what happened with me in the last 5 years, but because you've seen the other movies, like, why was I not doing those things? Well, basically, the reason I wasn't here, and here was because I was also doing these. Sometimes I just wish they'd just start the movie.
Yeah.
But having said that, I did like the narration, but it's kind of like, we're going to talk about Thanos again.
Yeah. But it's also his first movie since.
I know, and part of that is just like the release schedule, I think.
Yeah.
But it was a little like, we're getting to a point where it's like you got to remember a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's other movies I'd like to see.
It's almost like
I could have rewatched Tar.
Anytime you start the next Harry Potter book, you have to get through the Dursleys. And it's the hardest part.
Yeah. But anyway, and then here's the other thing. I'm not super well versed in Ant-Man comics. I don't think I've ever even read one. I've read issues that have Ant-Man in them, but I haven't read an Ant-Man comic. So maybe I'm totally out of focus here. But this whole movie, I was just thinking, the people who discover the quantum realm and are exploring it should be the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
Because they're the explorers, and they're the ones who are studying science. I mean, they find the quantum realm in the comic books, so like they should be the ones. I think it's weird to have Ant-Man do it.
But don't you think that's simply because they didn't have Fantastic Four yet?
Yeah.
Because they've known Ant-Man has claimed the quantum realm since the last movie.
Well, it's very weird because we're not even getting Fantastic Four in Phase 5. And Fantastic Four is the backbone of the Marvel universe. And they've built an entire universe of movies without that backbone. And now I'm like, I don't even know how you bring them in. Because it's just not like they are the foundation, and I don't know how you bring them into the movies without that foundation anymore. Like I kind of feel like you're gonna have to do some sort of legwork, or I guess maybe they get their powers now or something like that. But I just don't know. What?
Good job.
I know. I covered that whole time. Jordan had to move Gilmore. What did he get?
A baby toy.
You got a baby. Why do we have a baby toy, Jordan?
We already talked about it.
No, he didn't.
Oh. He got one of our nieces and nephews' toys. Ow.
Gilmore. Oh my gosh. Calm your butt. Come here. Okay. No editing needed. This is great. People love Gilmore. They love Gilmore on here.
They're always wanting more of Gilmore. They want Gilmore, not Gilles.
Not Gilles, yeah. Okay, so all that happens, and we got Scott and Cassie, who are going to be fighting random stuff and join this insurgency, basically. And so they do. I need help, Jordan.
So we find out that, well, we don't know for sure yet, but I think everyone knows that ever since Kang came to the quantum realm, he's ruined everybody's lives.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the gist of the conversation, really. I don't know. We're introduced to people. You have the Blob character.
I did like the Blob character, which was David Desmalchian.
I think so.
Is that how you pronounce his name?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, so it's cool that he's still in the movie. But yeah. What do you have, Gil?
Just let him have it. It doesn't matter. Seriously, I don't care.
Yeah, well, our niece and nephew are going to be so upset about it.
They don't know.
Okay. So, yeah, let me take a note because this is grinding to a screeching halt.
I'm sorry. So while they're being, at first we think they're prisoners, and then it's like, no, they're not really prisoners. But these people are saying, like, the fact that you guys are here, you got to get away from us because now he's going to be looking for you. Like, they know who they are. There's just a lot about this that it's just like, this doesn't compute for me. They're in a literal other universe, like realm thing. Like they're, and like these beings, some of them human looking, but are not. It's just my mind. It's hard to not let your mind race.
Well, this is the weird world building stuff.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they all know who Michelle Pfeiffer is, which is just so. I guess Kang, every time he conquers someplace, he's like, "Get me Michelle Pfeiffer, Janet Van Dyne. I want her." Even though I think he knows that she escaped. Oh no, I guess he wouldn't know she escaped. So that actually does make sense. You know what? That makes sense.
Really?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Okay.
But this movie.
It's so frustrating. So while that's happening, the other three, Michelle Pfeiffer's like, I can't talk to you guys about anything.
They spend a baffling amount of time in this movie.
You know what's crazy?
With Michael Douglas having his hands in weird intestine ship things, flying a ship around.
And touching the earpiece that's in his ear. We know that that's for the ants. We know, Peyton. We don't need to see flashbacks of that later. We know that the ants are coming. They are the Deus Ex Machina. I knew that when they were being pulled in and all of the ants were coming in with them. So I think a crucial thing that's missing with those three being paired together, Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, and Evangeline Lilly.
Yeah.
None of those people are funny.
No.
None of those people are known to be funny. And so it's like whenever we get to that part of their story, it's just not. It's just so like serious, but also I don't know how much I should care because Michelle Pfeiffer won't talk about anything.
I know.
And then it's like, okay, that's what enter Bill Murray to talk about it, and it's like, yeah, he's kind of funny, but I'm just having such a hard time not checking out. Also, we haven't talked about our theater experience yet. It was kind of a wild one.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So we get to the theater, and this kid, like 8 to 10 years old, is sitting next to Micah, and Micah, this before the movie started.
So I have the recliners. I have the reclining footrest out.
And Micah turns to me and says, "This kid's kicking my seat."
Yeah, so he has his foot like hung over and he's kicking the bottom of my seat, just like goo, goo, goo.
And I was like, I think I suggested like, put your recliner down and see if it, he's like, oh, I shouldn't do that.
So I started doing that and doing it, and he just kept doing it. And then he pushed my elbow off of the elbow rest.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, who is this kid? Who does he think he is?
Luckily, the other seat beside me was empty, so Micah just moved. That did not end with the kid, though. That kid was so bored. He was bored when he got there, though, I think.
Yeah.
He was just standing up, sitting down, sitting on the edge of the recliners, laying down, kicking his legs all around.
Yeah.
Smacking so loudly on maybe food, maybe not food, just making so much noise.
But he did stand, because if you haven't been to the Cinemark theater, there's like the recliners, and then there's a section that's maybe like 2 or 3 feet wide, and then there's a big old like
balcony
kind of thing. And he at one point stood up, went to the balcony, turned around, and looked at the back of the theater.
He was so bored.
But he was a bad seed.
His parents just couldn't have been into that movie. Just leave.
He was a bad seed.
He was bad. He was bad, but I also think that the movie was boring. I think when M.O.D.O.K showed up, though, he was like, huh? He like audibly said that because it looked abysmal.
No, here's the thing. This is a parental tip. And this is what I think people should do. If you're taking your kids to the movie, you sit on the outside.
Oh, sure.
Why do you want to sit your kid next to strangers?
Micah, for one, we don't know the kid's situation. We don't know those. We don't even know if both of those people are his parents, for one.
That's true.
That being said, I do understand, not saying that I would do it, but parents are like, oh, we can sit by each other. Like we get like.
Yeah.
Not that they're cuddling or doing anything weird, but it's like, I want to sit by my wife for this movie.
Yeah, but that's why you get the edges, and you give the kids the whole edge up to the stairs, and then you sit on the inside.
Yeah, the kid's going to run down and up the stairs the whole time. Which brings me to, we saw this on
coming in hot,
President's Day. And I don't know. I guess I just thought like, yeah, no one had school today, but this is like a 6 p.m. showing. People are like at home. No one like the movie actually wasn't that full, but down at the like almost the very front, there was just a big group of teenagers.
They were taking pictures,
talking full volume throughout the movie, walking around like they were just hanging out in their living room the whole movie, and
they were taking pictures of the movie.
Well, specifically of M.O.D.O.K.
Yeah, which I will say, like, I saw a flash.
That was funny.
I saw a flash, and I like didn't register what was going on, and then later I saw a flash when M.O.D.O.K. showed up, and you know me, I'm very anal about the theaters, and I thought to myself, they're right to do that. So let's talk about M.O.D.O.K.
Okay.
So
we're at
Corey Stoll, right?
Yeah.
He, from the first Ant-Man movie, he was thrown into the quantum realm. And this caused him to, like, fall apart and, like, get crushed in a weird way, misshaped his body.
Is that truly it?
That's what they showed in the movie.
I was so baffled by what was happening. I didn't even, like... I don't know. I think it went in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
Also, I hated it.
And Kang finds him. He, like, puts together a suit for him. We see a M.O.D.O.K. butt, which was kind of fun. And he puts him together, and then they have M.O.D.O.K. M.O.D.O.K. is a fun character. Funny enough, I've never read a comic with him in it, but I've seen him in shows.
Yeah, the one on Hulu with Patton.
Yeah, which was very funny. I think it lost steam, but it started out very strong.
Yeah.
But what I gather from both this take and the Patton Oswalt show is that, like, M.O.D.O.K. is someone who thinks he's a lot more evil and better than everyone than he actually is.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit of a laughingstock. And so they try to play that up in the movie, and at certain points it succeeds, but and maybe this is a me thing, but I felt like they weren't self-aware enough about it.
No, and I don't know why they felt the need that it had to be a character we know about.
Yeah.
That like Scott has a personal connection to. We don't need that. So just cast an actual. Let's just cast a comedian.
Yeah.
It's just what I wanted, which is why the Patton one is funny, because he's a comedian.
Yeah, and it did look. I think they were kind of going for it purposely looking terrible, but it was like beyond just goofy terrible, and it was just like, I think this is just a bad special effect because M.O.D.O.K. has like a huge face and a small body. So
his face is his body.
Yeah.
And he just has normal arms and legs.
Yeah. So they stretched out the actor's face, and it was like, you could feel it in the theater where everyone was like, no way am I looking at this.
At one point in the movie, I had to put up my hand because I didn't want to look at it.
Well, and I think if you want to do M.O.D.O.K. and make him look cool, which I guess he's not supposed to be a cool character, but I think you got to go with a puppet. Because then you can have a weird stretched face and it'll look weird and you can still be goofy and stuff, but it won't, like, he did not look human. Like, he didn't look like something you could touch.
No.
It just looked like I went to I went to like my computer and I just like stretched a photo. That's all it looked like. Mm-hmm. And there was no like it didn't look 3D. Mm-hmm. It just looked flat.
It looked so bad.
And that was another moment where I kind of felt like, who are they making this movie for?
I know.
Because I know we can get pretty into the weeds of comic book characters and stuff like that, but that felt like, who's excited about this moment?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And not that all the moments have to be exciting for certain people. I think it was
just for shock value.
Yeah. But it did make for a funny exchange at the end.
That was funny. I will give him that.
That kind of made up for it. But
so, Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, and Evangeline go to a bar where they meet Bill Murray.
Yeah.
And we learned that
they try to do the Mos Eisley thing. They did. They do not succeed.
The biggest takeaway I had from it was Michelle Pfeiffer and Bill Murray had a relationship while she was down here. That's really all I got. I guess they also talked about, like, they were both, like, resistance fighters.
Yeah.
Kind of. This movie also felt like they were trying to make a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And on every level.
Well, I mean, when they show up at the bar and she's like, I'm going to talk to someone who's, like, a rebellious person. And you're like, oh, Han Solo. And then she goes and talks to this guy who's like, hey, I'm not a good guy. I'm not a bad guy. And it's like, oh, Han Solo. And we're at a bar like Han Solo is in. I get it.
Yeah, gosh, it was just
The broccoli guy looked cool though.
Sure, fine. And then Bill Murray sells him out, so they have to run away, and they succeed, and that's where we get the tentacle contraption of how Michael Douglas flies
Yeah.
the ship. What happens after that? And when do we finally get the Michelle Pfeiffer explaining everything?
Somewhere.
Let's just get to it.
Yeah.
So the movie actually started with it, which I actually kind of liked that.
Yeah.
But
some would call it a preface. Or no, they wouldn't call it
prologue.
That. Prologue. Preface would be like Kevin Feige walking out and being like, "Hello, you're about to enjoy this movie.
Thank you for choosing to see this in theaters."
Yeah.
So Michelle Pfeiffer was, in the quantum realm for a really long time, couldn't figure out how to get out. And then she sees this ship crash land and rescues this person, happens to be King, and his ship can go in between multiverses.
Yeah.
The ship's cool.
Ship cool.
So they start working together on fixing it together so that they both can get out of here.
Yeah.
And she, she probably told him everything about her family and her daughter and her life that she'd like to get back to.
Yeah.
Not that she's like actually is going to, I don't know. I'm bitter about, I don't like her character.
Yeah.
So then they're making the ship work, and the ship is, they also just use vocabulary again. That just is such an eye roll for me in these movies. But it's like neuro something. Basically, it's connected to his brain.
Yeah.
So she touches the ship and she sees him, like his past.
Yeah,
She's seen
is cool.
What he's done.
I like this.
And she's seen that he has like murdered so many people. The question I had was, is she seeing this version of him do it, or is she seeing another version of him do it? That I couldn't get.
Yeah. I think it's this version.
Okay.
I think. Because he's been exiled by his other version. So maybe it's because he does this.
Okay.
I'm a little unclear.
I was a little unclear because part of me is like, are they trying to banish the wrong... Like are our good guys trying to stop him from maybe getting back and being good for doing... Like, he needed to get back to stop things.
That question isn't asked or answered, and it should be. I'm confused. Okay, so I'm confused about Kang. I need, it's weird for how much time they dedicate to him. I just don't really get it. We walked out of the theater and I was like, I just don't really get his thing. I don't understand his powers. I don't understand his motive. And you made him the bad guy of this movie. I know that he wants to get out of the quantum realm and like conquer and stuff, but I was kind of like, but we saw one in Loki, and I know that this is a multiverse and they're all together, but they call him the exiled one, but they're going to be the bad guys of the King the Conqueror, but this one was killed. You know what I mean? Like I'm a little bit baffled, and that's, again, it's like, if I'm baffled by that, is your general audience really going to trust you on that? And you and I talked about how Thanos was like, hey, I got my powers because I got the Infinity Stones, and I'm going to get rid of half the population. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But let's see.
So she sees that and is like, I don't trust you anymore. I'm going to destroy this. So she destroys the energy core to his ship.
And shrinks it.
Shrinks it.
/ blows it up or something.
She traps both of them there.
Yeah. One thing I thought was really funny is earlier in the movie when she was walking through and she goes, oh my gosh, we're in Subatomica. We're in a worlds within worlds. I saw you lean back in your seat and sigh. And those were all like Worlds Within Worlds was a recent issue of Fantastic Four I read. And then them discovering Subatomica and going there was also a recent one I read. And I was kind of like, it's dumb. Yeah. And I know that this lost Jordan, but cool. I'm glad they said those like 5 words.
Good. I'm glad for you. Hated it for me.
Yeah. But yeah, so all of this happens, and then of course she was able to escape, and now she's back, and now there's warring planets and all that stuff. Warring people trying to be conquered. So then Kang captures Scott and Cassie. And this is when I got real confused about him. Because I guess we can have an all-powerful being, and that's okay. But it's like, okay, so he can control people's magnetism and like move them around. Then later in the movie, he shoots laser beams, and then he can like fly the ship with thought. And they did say that he's centuries ahead in technology. So maybe this is all technology. But I'm kind of
I
like,
think it has to be.
but also the whole movie he keeps saying like, well, as far as time is concerned, I can give you time, and he never does anything with that. He never
Almost positing that he has some kind of time travel superpower, or
Yeah.
that I always thought of it as he was that advanced that he has just unlocked that. Because it almost
Okay.
feels like in Loki that was his curse for unlocking it.
Okay. So
But
he's
it's
like
been
a
long time since I've seen that episode.
regular human who knows everything.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't even know if he's human.
I know I might be getting hung up on it, but if this is your big bad, I think I need to know those things.
Yeah.
So
you'd think they would have done a little bit more in the post-credit scenes, like a nugget here and a nugget there. If they felt like, man, we had a whole movie with Kang in it, I think that's not enough. We got to put him in both of our post-credit scenes too.
Yeah, and it's an Ant-Man.
I was so annoyed by that.
Make there a credit scene where,
why?
Michael Pena shows up and he's like, "Where were you at work today?"
Yeah, let that guy have some fun. I was so annoyed that we just went through this whole movie. We've seen him in Loki. And for some reason, at our second post-credit scene, which we had to sit through like 10 minutes of credits for.
Yeah, that's huge. Come on.
Yeah, but we get to this, and it's like a period piece, and Kang's like an illusionist, and it's Owen Wilson and Loki in the audience, and Loki's like, "That's him. I'm shaking in my boots. I'm so scared." And it's like, we know. We've seen you have an altercation with him, and we just saw this movie. We know.
Yeah. Well, that was for them to say, remember, there's a second season of Loki coming. So then Kang gets Scott to agree to heist the little engine drive, or he'll kill his daughter. So Scott goes, okay, sounds good. After a little bit of fighting and them meeting M.O.D.O.K. And he's like, oh, a mechanism, I forgot the M.O.D.O.K. thing, but he says it and he's like, oh, wow. And he says it several times and you're like, yeah, we get it. Let's move on. Designed only for killing. Mechanized organism designed only for killing. And so then he goes to this like area where Michelle Pfeiffer basically made this hard drive thing, like explode into something big, but it's still within it. They have to like shrink it.
Yeah.
So he goes in there, and then this is when he has this whole, like crisis where he's seeing like parallel dimensions and a probability storm where every possibility is happening. So there's like billions of Ant-Mans, and they're forming ants. You get that? And you're like, yeah, stop talking about it.
Just at no point in this movie did it feel like anyone was actually in danger.
No. And even throwing in like the Baskin Robbins one, who's like, why am I even here? I don't know. It just, none of it worked.
Wow.
I do want to say something really funny is we went and saw a movie and Grayson was with us. I don't remember which movie, but this trailer played, and Grayson is not a superhero MCU guy. But as the trailer's going on, he's like, maybe I'll catch up on the Ant-Man movies and see this. I kind of want to see this. And I go, really? And then he saw the shot in this movie where like the large Ant-Man like melts because it tries to do it after it getting really big. And he turned to me and he's like, nah, I don't want to see it. It just immediately, it was like 2 shots after he said he might watch those movies. But yeah, and then Wasp comes down and she helps him and they get on there. They're able to throw their, and this is another thing, like they just don't explain this stuff well. He throws a miniaturizer pink PIM particle thing to miniaturize the hard drive. It bounces off and doesn't work. And then they kind of look at each other and they're like, okay, let's both try. And then they both throw them and it works.
Huh.
I don't understand how that's different than what he tried to do.
They needed to use 2, not 1.
It's just kind of like, that's about as convenient as it gets.
Yeah.
It didn't work and now it does?
Yeah.
It should have worked the first time then.
I don't know.
So they get it, and then now Kang has it, and he's going to fly on out of here, right?
Yeah.
And then everybody gets caught up with each other.
Yeah.
And they have the big final showdown, right?
I guess.
The showdown action
His daughter
is crazy
breaks
bad.
out from being held hostage.
Yeah.
And breaks out all of the other people that they met at the beginning of the movie. And inspires everyone to fight, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
That was rough. Because, they're trying to pay off that she always breaks things for a good reason.
Yeah.
It was fun. And this is these sorts of things in isolation are not bad because, no movie's perfect and you make mistakes all the time. But I think it shows a lack of caring for this. You have, throwing multiple shrink things, and that for some reason works.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have in the scene where Cassie breaks out, she goes up to the keypad and she goes, "Hey, do you know how this works?" to the person she's trying to free. And the person's like, "I don't know." And then they're able to get it to work. And then that person who didn't know how it works proceeds to go through and free everybody by using the keypads.
Oh, she figured it out, Micah.
It's just one of those things where it's you're just not putting the extra care that these movies usually actually do pretty well.
Yeah.
So all of it's just kind of falling apart for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are buildings that are alive, and that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Everything's alive here, except for some things, which is kind of funny. That's another thing. It's okay, so the buildings are alive. Are their clothes alive? Are their spears alive? What is alive and what isn't alive?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so then they do the siege on Kang's big old place, his empire. And someone pointed this out on Twitter, which was very funny, is there's a scene where Cassie gets really big, and her and Scott are both big, and they hug, and they're like, "How cool is this to be this big?" And he pointed out how it's just
because they're both big, they don't look big.
Well, and there's nothing in the foreground or background that shows what they are. And he said most of the scene is shot at shoulder length, so you have your brain if you watch the scene in mute, you would not know that they are giant.
Yep.
And he said that just speaks to how poorly this movie's directed.
I felt that way too.
Yeah, I forget his name, but he's one of the writers on Patrick's videos, so he's on Patrick's team. But yeah, I thought that was a great thing to notice. And so they fight for a long time. They get into the Citadel, which is a great word. I mean,
it's a great
as far as words are concerned, you got to give that an 8 out of 10 minimum, okay? And then they get up to Kang. They're able to temporarily stop him and escape.
Wow, you're skipping. I mean, I know it's action. I know.
No, but I mean, if you have something.
Well, the blob guy gets a hole in him, and he's so excited that he gets a hole.
Yeah.
Fun payoff. And then
I did see another review where someone was like, "This movie just has no purpose," and they're like, when this guy is talking about holes at the beginning of the movie, this blob, you think it's funny, and then by the end of the movie, you're just hoping and praying that they're not going to keep bringing up this holes thing.
Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, it's that guy's biggest character development. That's
a very Rick and Morty joke.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The dude with that shoots beams out of its head is like a beam, which the character design is cool.
Yeah, he looks great.
Sucks that he died.
Yeah.
I don't really know. So they're trying to escape, or they're fighting him and everything, and things aren't looking good. Kang is so strong, and then that's when the ants come in.
Yeah. Yeah, and
then we get flashbacks within this movie.
Yeah, where he's
Michael Douglas touching his ear ants. They're ants?
Yeah. I wish our house didn't still smell like Brussels sprouts. It's been 24 hours since we made that, and it still smells like Brussels sprouts. But beyond that, he's all of the ants
it's called lighting
come
a
out.
Candle. Have you ever tried it?
Oh, I forgot. We should do that. So the ants come out, and they, Kang is destroying everyone just by shooting beams out, but he's not able to conquer these ants. Okay. I kind of buy that, but also kind of don't. And they rip them apart. And then they go, okay, let's get up there and let's get home. And so they open up the realm. Janet and Hank and Cassie jump through, and then Scott's about to, and then Kang shows up, who'd been ripped apart, right? Am I misremembering that the ants ripped him apart?
I have no idea.
And they fight, and they have like a brutal fight, and I'm thinking to myself, yo, Jonathan Majors trained for Creed 3. You're not beating him in this fight, Paul Rudd.
He didn't do very well.
That's
he
true.
Beat him up.
I sort of liked this part a little bit, but then it was weird because there was something about the way that they structured the scene going in and out of the portals that rubbed me the wrong way, but I can't recall what it was exactly.
I don't know, but
oh no, I know exactly what it was, because then Janet comes out. Hope comes out, and she shoots him with her beams that always look very silly, because it's just the actress doing like pushing her arm back. There's no actual recoil. So she's shooting him. He gets in the machine. He gets sucked into it, and then like the machine stops working. And
then they're like stuck in the quantum realm.
Yeah, which I was kind of bummed because I didn't want it to end there. You know, it's like, cliffhanger. But I was kind of like, okay. And then not 2 minutes later, it's back up and working, and then they get out because Cassie's like, oh, I sent another signal. You're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know.
And then Kang is destroyed, apparently.
You know, I just don't think they did a great job of this either. But at the beginning of this movie, we learned that like Cassie has a good heart, and she wants to fight for good, even if that means she goes to jail for it.
Yeah.
But she wants to help people. And her dad, Scott's just trying to be a dad, like keeping her safe. Like, I understand you're doing it for good reasons, but you got to think about like what this means for you.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, you don't even do anything anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're an Avenger and you saved the world, but like that's the only thing that you talk about anymore.
Yeah.
Because you saved the world that one time. So they established early on that like he's just like coasting, I guess.
Yeah, God forbid that he take a little break, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but like he's not really being a superhero.
Yeah.
And I just don't think they did that well throughout the movie of like, I just think they could have written it better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, throughout he's like, Cassie, let's get out of here, and she's like, no, let's help these people.
Yeah.
So they do it, but it's just not impactful in any way.
Yeah, and I think it should be, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. But not 2 minutes later, they make it back to Earth, and then we have the second best scene of the movie.
Yeah, where he's walking down the street again, having a good time.
This time the coffee costs $12.
Because he's not Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Very funny. He gets a cake made by Greg Turkington. It's very funny.
And it tastes bad.
That's
funny.
Yeah.
And then
he has like an existential crisis because he's doing voiceover again.
That was that was a good bit.
Where he's like, I don't think we actually beat him. Oh, never mind. Keeps going.
Yeah, but it goes on for a while, and I was kind of like, is the movie going to end? You know how Doctor Strange ended with him, like, his third eye opening, and then he fell in the street? And, like, that ending, I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of a bummer way to end a movie.
Yeah.
You know, on a cliffhanger like that. And so I thought they were doing that with this, and then he's like, no, I'm pretty sure we beat him. That was funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then it rolls credits.
Mm-hmm.
And there's those Kang post-credit scenes we talked about.
First one's bad.
Second one,
bad.
The second one is at least kind of interesting. It was
interesting to look at.
It was more like, oh, Tom Hiddleston again.
Oh yeah, well then it's like, ooh, like spiritualism movement time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gimme.
So what do you think? I mean, I threw my opinions out there. Is Marvel in trouble, Jordan?
No, I don't think Marvel's in trouble. They can have one bad movie every once in a while.
Yeah.
They're allowed.
Yeah.
They're still gonna make money. It's just. But for people to like, basically, it's like a doomsday now. That's ridiculous.
Well, and it is like they were.
I think people are maybe just finally realizing that Peyton Reed is not as good as everyone thought he was.
Well, yeah, I feel like they've been singing "It's all over" since Doctor Strange. So,
but so many people like that movie too.
I know that's such a weird. I don't understand why people don't like that.
At all.
Yeah. And then, yeah. So. We'll see.
More than anything, I think that if they like stop doing shows for a while, like a while being like a year, and that's not that long, and I guess, just dedicate times to movies. How many movies are they coming out with a year?
Well, this year there are 2 more coming out. I think.
Maybe if they limit it to 2 for a couple years, they would build up excitement again.
Yeah.
Because now it's just like I think so much of it's just fatigue.
Yeah. Well, and there is something to be said for I do wonder, like when the next Avengers movie finally has a date, is that movie going to be huge again? Because it's like, okay, we have to see this one. We can skip Ant-Man, we can skip Thor, but you got to see Avengers.
Don't give people a reason to skip movies leading up to it because you're coming out with too many things.
Yeah.
Including
What about all those writers' contracts that are going to expire, Jordan?
Huh?
Actors' contracts that are going to expire. She rolled her eyes at me. Yeah, so that was our Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Did you get Quantumania'd?
I don't know. No.
No, I'm talking to them.
Oh.
So don't forget to rate and review our podcast. Please, please, please. And then go to patreon.com/Micah and download our episode on Knives Out. Next week, we'll come out with our Oscar special on Patreon. And then next week on the main feed, we are going to France because we're doing the 3 Colors trilogy, starting with Blue. And boy, those movies are incredible. If you were thinking about skipping it, I would advise you to rethink that consideration.
All the movies are on HBO.
They are. And if you bought them, I don't think you're going to be upset either. Krzysztof Kieslowski has now become a household name amongst our directors, and he's fantastic. So check that out before we dive back into X-Men. Peace out.
Bye.
A-Town.